Lightning like Steve McQueen. Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my twice a week long form podcast, because I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. I do have a very special guest who's going to be coming up on here in a little bit, but just a little quick recap. I got a brand new episode that released this morning with Adam Truelove. We talked about insurance. We talked about surety bonds. What do they actually cover? What can you do in the event that you can't pay for an insurance claim? And what is to be expected with all of that, you guys? So that's live on iTunes and Spotify right now. But now we're going to hear talk about AI. We're going to talk about transportation data. And I'm going to lead in with this because this is an exact quote from this gentleman. Transportation data sucks. There's a back end of that. And we're going to pull him up right now. So with that being said, I got my man, John Sutton, back on the show for I think this might be your first time coming on, John.
This is the first time on the Freight Coach. Yeah, first time, long time here, but I'm really excited to be on.
Oh, dude, I appreciate it, man. So you're with Sunset. You guys are out of St. Louis, Missouri, right?
That's correct.
And what is it that Sunset does, man? What are you guys all involved in?
Full global supply chain solutions, man. Like 1 pound, 100,000, 500,000 pounds, you name it, we move it anywhere, point A, point B. We think that that's where a lot of our value lies. Is if we say that we're a transportation company, we need to be able to transport anything.
Sorry, I mistimed my drink of coffee right there. So this thing, like, I'm going to be honest, and I said this on the show when I broke this article down. When I read transportation data sucks, John Sutton, I laughed like hysterically I was like, this. I don't know, man, because you're not wrong, right? Like, there's a lot of data that is out there. What data is right for your business, though? Because it's like, are you using the wrong data for the decisions that you should be making? Therefore, you're right, man. Transportation data sucks in that instance. So, like, what was the whole statement that was made? Because I think it's very imperative that we say all of it.
Okay, yeah. Context matters here. So the question that led into that answer was, what's going to be one of the largest roadblocks or inhibitors to growth in the AI and machine learning spaces in the years to come, specific to the transportation space? And my answer to that was the data. And, the follow-up question to that was, well, why do you say it's the data? And the first thing that came to mind was transportation data sucks.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to incriminate anyone's data. Like, we're very, very proud of our data quality. Many of my friends, at other brokerages have done a very, very good job of cleansing and creating non-polluted data stores for the purposes of being able to glean from, backwards facing data modeling, and with the purpose of being able to implement AI to leverage that data in some capacity in the future. All of that has really been, years long processes to set the stage for something that we knew was bound to come at some point, where we need clean, non-polluted quality data more than ever. And the reason, we compare transportation data to other industries. Okay. The industry that everyone participates in every single day, consumerism, your data goes through a point of sale system, whether you're going through the grocery store, gas station, things like that. And that entire transaction, all the data that they need for that transaction is 3 columns. What did you buy? How much did you buy? And how much did you cost? Yeah. Right. And that is just one milestone of data. You made a purchase. Transportation gets a little bit different in the fact that what we are able to invoice happens for multiple milestones of a transaction. We have a milestone for a pickup. We have a milestone for a delivery. And sometimes in between, we have multiple pickups, multiple deliveries. Okay. So now that causes our data to get very long. The information that we are putting on an invoice or a receipt is much different than just a traditional retail invoice where, unless you're CVS or Walgreens, the receipt is going to be about that big. So then you add another dimension to that is charges, right? So I now have a very long data set with all of that milestone-based data. And now it starts to get top down from line haul, fuel, additional accessorials. And transportation data for a single transaction is frequently more of a matrixy than a line item, okay? And that at its foundation makes things a little bit difficult. But you also have to think where that data comes from too. What I like to use or describe is in and out times, for example. In and out times, we know that those times happened down to a minute, but we are so willing to allow those times to round or even put bad information in just for the purposes of saying, yeah, this is picked up, and putting information in that may not even be reflective of the ballpark times that a shipment actually happened. So now let's say you have a use case, right? To be evaluating some kind of data as it pertains to dwell time or gleaning from your location data. What shippers have really fast turn times? How can you be a shipper of choice for me? Well, guess what? If you're trying to do learning from inaccurate data that's inaccurate for the sake of being inaccurate, you're not going to get accurate results. And so there are so many potential opportunities of breakdown of information from transportation data. Are we keying in bad data for the sake of keying in bad data for on the order entry side? Are the times in the system not reflective of actual appointments or actual in and out times? How accurate was the carrier data, the customer data? We only enforce the data that we need to enforce, really. And that's more so on like a credit and collection side of things that we have to enforce because business practices say we have to enforce them. But all too often, so many companies just do the bare minimum there, and they're accumulating data debt, whether they realize that or not. There is going to come a time and a place where they're wanting to implement a process, a procedure, a model that if they could have 1-2 years of clean, quality, unpolluted data, they would be able to get going really quick. But as they start to stand that operation or that exercise up and they look back, oh crap, like we just don't have good data here. And now we're starting from, square one, and we have to change our practices, our data capture practices to be able to support what we're trying to do in the future. I know that was a really long-winded answer.
No.
But that's what I mean whenever I say transportation, for lack of a better term, the data sucks.
No, there are so many data points that are out there, and everything is on such a singular basis too. And it's on a case by case basis because if we, let's talk about freight rates, for example, right? Like there's a lot of data that's out there that's extremely circumstantial, right? Like why did that specific truckload move for that specific rate? Was it multi-pick? Was it late pick? Did they have to hold it for a long time? That there's not like, that's why I push back so much on like what a national average is or like what some of the pricing that comes out there is. You need to use those as data points, not this is the end all be all. This platform said it was going to be $1,800. I paid $2,000 on it and everything else. Like there's a lot of stuff that can go into the decision on what you have to accurately quote for a load. And I want people to keep that in mind as you're going out there, because the national average or the today average on a load might not be the rate that it takes to get a truck booked because it's got to pick up at 4:00 on a Friday because you had a fall off last minute, right? So it's like there's a lot of different things that you need to take into consideration. And then furthermore, right, like are there any other elements that are going on? Like there was a massive snowstorm that blanketed the upper Midwest here earlier this week. That affected not just the Midwest, but that affected capacity out west here because trucks weren't able to leave on time from the Twin Cities to make it out to the West Coast like they normally were. So like there's a bunch of different factors that go in there. So it's like, again, there's not a one way of doing things. There's so much that is circumstantial that's out there because I don't know a ton of brokers, John, who have 15 loads a day from Charlotte to Chicago every single day of the week that are 26 pallets and 40,000 pounds, right? Like there's a lot of, that's why so much stuff is circumstantial in my opinion.
It is. And, we take it how we can get it, obviously. And we have to put into context that what we do as brokers, we're not very transaction heavy. If we have a team internally or a single team member that's handling 8 to 10 loads a day, we think that's 2 thumbs up. That's awesome. Great job. But if we go back to the retail space, Starbucks, for example, like Starbucks, if they only do 8 transactions a day, they're not going to be around very long. So it's very low transaction, high revenue. And as part of that, it really prevents us from achieving a data mass to be able to glean a lot of insights from as well. That's why the industry is so reliant on the likes of a green screens, on the likes of a DAT, because they aggregate that contribution data and they actually have the data mass to be able to make something out of it. And while, what DAT does on the ratecast side of things and encouraging brokers to be more forward facing based off of the data mass that they have and the models that they have, as compared to backwards facing to, I'm a firm believer that the only thing that you don't know is the history you don't know yet, which is why I believe that we should be forward facing in the data that we are looking at and looking more so into predictive rates as compared to backwards facing rates when we're making pricing decisions. But ultimately, we in our individual silo, unless we're just absolutely monstrous in transaction revenue, we don't have enough data mass that we need to be able to glean actionable insights on any given lane on any given day. That's why, as an industry, we've almost pseudo banded together to provide contribution data to the likes of DAT and others, such that they can get that data mass to be able to do the really cool things that they do with it.
Yeah, because another thing you had mentioned in here is about automated quoting is something that you're excited about, and it enables us to take unstructured data out in an attachment or an email and put it into a pre-structured format that's out there. So, it's like there's tools out there for it. Like, I always think of my friends, Dan Hellman, with over at, with Tabby and everything, and talking about that, right? Because it's like, speed to quote and everything else. And automated quoting is something that is at people's disposal right now, right? Where it's like, because every customer that I personally move freight for sends over it differently, right? Like there's not a uniform way of sending over rate quotes, spot market, like very few have actual TMSs that it's EDI, that everything's electronic. They have a bid board and everything. Some of it, like I got customers that I text, right? Like I literally text, they'll text me, hey, what's your rate on this? Shit like that. So it's like having something to help you stay on top of it. Because I had Dan on my show a bunch of times, but recently, and we were talking like it was, I forget, and he can quote me on this and fix me if I was wrong, but there's like some 90% of quotes go unquoted because they just fall in between the cracks, right? So it's like having an automated tool capturing all of that data that comes in and providing rates for you is crucial, right? Like, and having those integrations in there, like with green screens, for example, where you can do that, and then green screens will spit out a rate, and then you can have your normal markup with that, and then it will literally provide your customer quotes within seconds.
Yeah, and the quoting space, you look at what the current capabilities are out there today from the various providers, and you get really excited about watching those tools be able to synthesize an email and look for the data points that we know that we need to be able to get a quote. Origin, destination, equipment, weight, commodity, ship date, right? Like those are the foundational principles of everything that should go into being able to quickly return a quote. And whenever you go to the common brokerage floor today, you're going to see a lot of what I call swiveling. Okay. So 2 monitors. One monitor is Outlook, front, your email client of choice. And then the other monitor, it's going to have 1,000 tabs on it. Every single tab has a purpose. And one of those tabs will be a rating engine in some capacity. And you come over here, you grab the origin, paste it over here. You come over here, you grab the destination, paste it over here. And you're just translating data all day to be able to quickly respond to your client and be able to provide them a rate. So what can you do to get you out of 2 screens to be able to do that, to get information into a format that allows a quote to be generated and get into 1 screen, right? And being able to do that out of your email client potentially. And I think that's a really, really big value prop to a lot of folks that that they want that quote data. And the thing about quoting is you have to return one quickly. Everyone knows that. But how does your management team, how do your team members know that a rate was returned? Where are you saving that quote? And I think the answer 99 times out of 100 is I'm not. And data entry takes time. If the client doesn't require a quote sheet, then 9 times out of 10, you're just not going to provide a quote sheet as long as they're comfortable with the rate being provided over email. So peeling back that onion and looking on an even higher level, how can you evaluate or classify every email that comes into a user's inbox to determine how many opportunities were you requested to quote that day? How many did you actually quote? If you did quote it, did you win it? And if you won it, well, what did you ultimately move it at? That's the end-to-end puzzle that brokers have been trying to solve from a data perspective for decades now, is that entire end-to-end funnel. Whenever we think win percentages, all we think about is what did we quote and did we win it, right? Like those are the only two verticals that we look at, but we need to look further than that. We need to look higher up and we need to look further down. And being able to get that makes for a lot of education opportunities, training opportunities, and most importantly, growth opportunities as well. We think of that. Let's think from a managed transportation play, right? Where I am the client's logistics arm. If we're not storing those quotes or capturing that data whenever we go to a QBR, it makes things difficult in the way of keeping up with like new business opportunities. I want to be equipped with everything that I provided that client a truckload quote on whenever we go into a QBR to be able to ask, was my freight rate the reason that you weren't able to secure this business? What else do you need from me? So not only does having that data, equip you for training, success, and growth internally, but it also, in a true partnership scenario, looks to like grow you alongside of the client as well, and making sure that you're encouraging, keeping communication open for new prospective business opportunities. I never want to be the reason the client wasn't able to secure a contract with a new supplier was because the freight rate was just a skosh too high.
Mm-hmm. No, dude. Very rarely do I have little to add on to that. And I got nothing to add on to that, man. I think that there's so much this is why I'm glad you came on here to talk about this stuff, man, because it's like, I kind of feel like I'm beating the same drum time and time again about how like everything is a lot more intricate than just, hey, give me your freight. Let me bid on your freight, right? Like there's so many different things that have to come into the decision-making process that goes down to it. It's not as simple as a lot of people out there try and make it seem at times. And, because it's like, I personally look at more trends than anything, right? Because I think that there are too many anomalies that kind of get into the data at times, and it can cause it to go up or go down. So it's like, I like to look at year trends, 90-day trends, stuff like that to see like, hey, where's the consistency? Where is the anomaly? And then can that anomaly be explained? Right? Was there a disaster up there, which we all know what's going on the East Coast right now? Was there a major weather event during that time? Was there a holiday during that time? What explains that spike? Because I think if people only look at the 30-day average, for example, it can be misleading because a lot of things can happen over 30 days. That's why I think when you're looking out into the future, or in the past, where it's just like, hey, this last year it held firm, right? Because I think most people would be pleasantly surprised if they looked at a 1-year lane data and that they would see that there's really only a couple of penny difference over a rolling 12-month time, right? It could spike at $1.98 a mile. Hypothetical example. I don't need anybody to say that that's cheap freight. $1.98 a mile, and then it's at $1.94 a mile at some point, and then at $2.08 a mile or something like that, right? So we're talking about 4-cent drop or a 10-cent increase in it. But if you're looking at a 1,000-mile run, we're only talking about $100 difference or $100 difference, excuse me. So from my perspective, you don't need to change your rates to your customers at that time, right? If you're looking at making a pricing decision going for the next 30, 60, or 90 days, so many people have like, how do I bid an RFP for the year? It's pretty simple because the majority of these lanes do not change as drastically as you think. They do when you look at it down on the daily level. If you're only out there sourcing a carrier today, of course, it's going to be hard to keep the same rate if you're going out there and trying to find a new truck every single time that load pops up.
You're right. And mentioning the RFP, it's like, I always say you ask 100 different brokers how you conduct an RFP and you get 100 different answers, but it's always fascinating to me that we still get in the same ballpark rate anyway for a long-term rate. And there's a big opportunity there to demystify and standardize RFP, esque data as well, and being able to glean from that internally for future analysis too. We see it all too frequently at brokerages that they participate in an RFP, but what do they do with that data afterwards, right? Where does that get stored, and how do you use that in the future? And you get a lot of this, and you get a lot of and if the client has the RFP again, we'll pull those lanes back, but those lanes need to be getting used on a grander scale. Your team members, whenever they're pricing transactional freight, should be able to see that we recently participated in an RFP on this lane, and this is the rate that we provided on it. And being able to get some overlap with what we're doing on the transactional side of supporting rate data and what we do on the contractual side supporting rate data as well.
So how are you guys leveraging AI right now outside of like pricing? Like maybe it's come from like document processing, reading contracts, something like that. Are you guys leveraging it at any further than that, or is it mainly in a operation style role right now?
We're leveraging it in a lot of places. You look at the four big areas of AI right now. Large language models are the rage right now. There's the infrastructure and security side of it, the IT side of it. There's the business intelligence side of it. And then there's also the generative side of it as well. We're not playing very much in the generative space at the moment, but we're keeping up with it. And I believe it was one of the execs, or potentially even CEO, founder at GitHub, where they estimated that 42% of the code this year that has been pushed or committed to GitHub was created by generative AI. And to me, that's absolutely astounding that it has came that fast, that far. On the IT side, we have quite a few Overwatch agents as well that are helping to secure the perimeter, especially from like a firewall perspective. And that everything that I see happening on that side assures me more and more every day that World War III will be fought on the internet.
Yeah.
It's almost scary what it can do. Now, there are days where it's a drunk 5-year-old. Don't get me wrong, but there are days where it's just like, holy crap, that was really cool. And then on the business intelligence side, one of the large opportunities that we've had there is actually weather, believe it or not. I think that as an industry, we recognize that weather is one of the factors that stands to impact service levels, impact our ability to accurately price a shipment, among a few other things, yet we don't give it a lot of credence. Right. If you go to any brokerage and they have TVs up, you're going to see primarily two things. You're going to see performance dashboards and the weather channel. Okay. Yeah. The performance dashboard is going to get 99% of the views. The weather channel is going to get the other 1%. And that's because weather takes time to keep up with. I always joke that we could be on the phone with a dispatcher and saying, hey, I'm just checking on that pickup in Birmingham, Alabama. Is everything going okay? And then behind me on the TV, the weather channel is on and a tornado just touched down, right? Yeah. And we're not making that connection because, again, weather takes time. But there are services out there that are specific to the transportation space that have learned from decades worth of weather-related data and the impact that those weather systems had on the roads, on civilian safety in general for the cities that they pass through. And they're now able to, if you give it an OD pair and that driver's current location, say, hey, we've came up with a composite score that indicates how likely weather is going to be able to impact the service level on this shipment or not, and almost acting like our own internal meteorologist in a way, and keeping us more informed in a way that we've never been able to be informed before.
Yeah. Weather Optics is the name of a company that comes to my mind on there, because I had the founder on my podcast a while back, and we were talking about literally all of this stuff and how some of the weather patterns out there are, man, it's crazy how, people say weather's unpredictable, but it's crazy with some of the data out there on how it's actually very predictable now on what will happen. And that's I think that's what's wild to me, right? I loved your drunk 5-year-old reference there, because it's like, that is a perfect analogy for data that is out there, right? Because sometimes it is like, how is this so scary accurate? And then other times you're like, what are we even looking at? Like this
Right.
this has no bearing on my actual job itself. So like, are you guys using that like to help you better understand what information is coming through? Like, what factors are you guys utilizing to make decisions right now when you're looking at AI data that comes through and you're like, that isn't real? That's the drunk 5-year-old here. This is what we've seen through hard experience, right? Because I think that that's always going to come into play, where you have that frontline tangible, hey, I've been doing this for 15 years. This is what I've seen. This is what's going to actually happen. How do you decipher through that? And how does that lead to help you guys make decisions?
That's really cool. And that's a great question, because the answer to this, even though it's going to be within the scope of weather, actually pertains to the symbiotic relationship that we are moving towards in the transportation space, and an AI co-pilot that helps us to do very repetitive, low cognitive ability tasks. And in that scenario, the AI it's the call to action, right? It's like, it's not I found something, it's I think I've found something. And the trained human eye is what actually goes through and validates if that call to action is legitimate. And if so, what do I do with that? Is that related to rating? And in the scope of our conversations for weather, it's okay, yeah, this is legitimate. And I need to notify someone that, hey, I know that this truck is currently, it's 8 p.m. In Atlanta, but I have a delivery at 6 a.m. tomorrow, and I need to go ahead and get something out the door tonight, letting them know that, hey, this driver may end up being a couple minutes late. We are monitoring for a weather system that's going through the area, and it may impact traffic conditions in the morning. Okay. Just a general use case on that front for us. But again, in the grander scheme of things, it's your assistant that can help you to block and tackle and make sure that client service is always elevated and service levels remain high, to make sure that there are no surprises and your client is just as informed as you are about any potential impacts to the ability to service a shipment.
Dude, I love that, man. I think that, with some of the advancements in technology and where things are going, because like from my perspective, I'm always looking to what can I do to increase my output, right? Like that's my big thing is I got to increase revenue, I got to increase opportunities, I got to do all of that, right? Because like this is literally how I support my family, and if I don't sell in a day, I don't potentially eat at some point, So it's like that's what I think I'm the most excited about with all things freight data, and and some of the tools that are coming out and are being introduced right now is it is increasing your output, right? Because I see this, you see layoffs happen in the industry all the time. And I think that with the advancements in technology, because it's like it used to be, people are like in freight are like just known for hiring classes, right? They're like, hey, we're going to hire 50. Hopefully a couple of them work out. And if they don't, we'll just lay them all off when the market changes anyways, right? Like you can't convince me that that's not a conversation out there, because that's kind of what it seems. But it's like with technology that's available to people right now, they're going to be able to, I think, go through and actually find the right 5 and hire the right 5 that are going to, and then you're going to be able to set them up with the right tools to maximize their outputs at that time, to really increase their ability to make money. Because that's where I think when it comes to technology is it's like, I want to place my people with the right tools to increase their incomes, right? Like I want my people to make as much money as humanly possible. That's why I'll never have cap commissions or anything like that. It's because of that. I want them to be set up for success long-term.
Right. And we both want that, and we want our clients to be as happy as humanly possible as well. And some people are probably tired of hearing me saying it, but ultimately I'm a firm believer that Silicon Valley, at least in this decade or the next, cannot solve logistics. Okay. However, I do believe that Silicon Valley can solve parts of logistics. particularly ones that are very repetitive and are very, very easy to recreate. And so if you lean into what it can do, as compared to thinking that if it can't do the entire end to end, I don't want anything with it, then you're going to see productivity improvements out of all of the resources that you currently have. You're going to get a lot of "this is awesome." You're going to get a lot of thank yous, and not just internally from your team members who have the opportunity to interact with that tech, but also the clients who understand that by using that tech, we're creating continuity and sustainability with our relationship by having all of the underlying data from those interactions over time.
Yeah. Oh, man. I love it. Well, dude, that's it for time, man. How does anybody reach out to you if they have questions about any of this, or they want to hear more about how you say transportation data sucks?
Absolutely. http://LinkedIn.com. You can find me on there under John Sutton. Always available at any given time. Questions, conversations. This is the kind of stuff that I live for.
I love it, man. John, thank you so much for joining me. And that is going to be it for today, you guys. As always, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network. The audio-only replay will be uploaded up to iTunes and Spotify here shortly after the show. We will be back next week, as always, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon. Now,